Jayo Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jayo Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Srila Prabhupada ki, Gaur Nitai ki, Shri Krishna Balaram ki, Shri Giraj Maharaj ki, Mahadev ki, Shri Lakshmi Nrsimhadev ki, Shri Radha Govinda Madhava ki, Prabhupada Lilamrita ki, Harinama Sankirtan ki, Brihat Madanga ki, Go Premanande. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Srila.
Om Matkanati Milandasya Gyanam Shanam Salakaya Shaksun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I affirm my humble obeisances unto the lotus feet of my spiritual master, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, who has opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge, for I was in the darkness of ignorance. Namah Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namini Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharine Nilvishe Sashunyavadi Pashatya Deshatarine Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaur Bhaktavrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Vanchakarpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanibhyo Vaishnavibhyo Namo Namaha. Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. In English or in French?
How many French?
In English, then it's easier maybe.
Who is only speaking English?
Who is only
Who
Although,
cannot speak French?
Prabhuji, although the book is in English, maybe.
Three.
Yeah, I think there's only.
Should
Je
I?
crois qu'il n'y a que 3 personnes qui parlent pas anglais, c'est mieux de faire une traduction en anglais.
Parce que pour Mandakini, c'est plus simple car elle lit chez
Ah oui, c'est. On fait in English then? Oh.
French would be better.
Maharaj, actually, the book is all. Book. Peut-être en anglais parce que. Maybe in English because the book is all in English, and we are going to read a lot from the book.
Frank, I don't know.
Okay.
We're okay. Whatever you decide to do, we're okay.
Okay. So.
It's the sound vibration.
Okay. So if you give me permission, first I would love to ask the benediction, the blessing of all my wonderful God brothers here. I don't know if we don't have any God sister, and all the Vaishnav, to be able to say a few words to bring Prabhupada in our assembly. Very well. So, okay, we do in English then. Oui, là. Non, ça passe bien. Yeah. Oui.
Water, you have water?
Yes, Annapurna is bringing.
Ah, tu fais simultané? Okay. Okay, yeah, it's perfect. Okay, so today, dear devotees, Okay, I was asked to speak slowly for the translation. Okay, so today, dear devotees, we are going to carry on reading about Srila Prabhupada Lila on this planet. Oh yeah, yeah, it's simultaneous, I forgot. Okay. And then we come back in the years 60s, and we are going to listen to the story of a devotee who is going to become Upendra. So it starts like that. One day in March, 18-year-old Wayne Gunderson was walking down the street when a piece of paper blowing along the sidewalk caught on his foot. He tried to kick it off without breaking his stride, but it hung on. Then he stopped and tried to kick it off. He couldn't. He reached down and picked it off and found that it was a flyer. And the flyer said, "Stay high forever."
Where are we? Which country? Do you know?
Yes, actually, although the title says New Jagannath Puri, we are in San Francisco. Yeah.
San Francisco.
Yeah, San Francisco.
67 or?
I'm just picking the book, so I couldn't.
It will come up in a minute.
Yeah, it will come up. Yeah, it's in March. It's in March. And then Stay High Forever, advertising lectures by Swami Bhaktivedanta at 518 Frederick Street. It's San Francisco. So that's, I was just reflecting while reading that if we had time, I could ask everybody in the room, how did you come in touch with Krishna consciousness? So that boy, it's very amazing. It was just a piece of paper sticking to his foot, and he really tried to kick it away, but it was just sticking. He couldn't take it away. And Krishna is very amazing. It's like for all of us, there was a special time we can recall when we think, how did I come to Krishna consciousness? And I was wondering myself, how did I actually hear for the first time about Krishna? So, sorry to talk about me, but you could talk, all of you, about it. And you can think how Krishna caught you the first time. First time, it was a friend who was from England. He came to Paris, and he was writing poems. I was maybe 18 or something. And he gave me his books, an exercise books of poems. And in the book, there was just this strange, in one page, it was written, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. And I asked him, what is it? Oh, it says, it's some people in London, they're just singing in the street that song, and you can get really nice food there. And then the second time, forgive me, it was the 60s, and all the youth was in great illusion, trying to go beyond what their parents taught them. And they were looking for an alternative way of life. And the big illusion was that, chemical substances or drugs could help them to see the truth. So it was a big illusion. It was my first time I took some chemical substance that we know as LSD. And in the room, I didn't sleep at night. In the room, there was a beautiful Indian picture. And I thought it was a lady, it was a blue lady, playing a flute, and all night I was just looking at that beautiful Indian posters, and later on I learned it was Krishna. And when the morning came with my friend who became Jyotirmai, we decided that we want to become Buddhist nuns, you know. But Krishna had another plan. So, thank you. So, let's go back to that boy Wayne. Like so many others, Wayne, a mild-mannered young man who worked for the post office, had come to hate Ashbury to take part in the revolution. So it was a revolution in consciousness. You know, the young people really wanted to know what was the goal of life, where they came from, what was the goal of the human form of life, and where they were going to go at the time of death. So when attending rock concerts and be-ins, browsed through the books and posters in the psychedelic shops, he shared an apartment with his girlfriend and another couple, and he took drugs. But he was quiet, polite, and solitary. He didn't dress like a hippie, but he wore clean, conservative, casual clothes and a whimsical, odd-looking sports cap. The flyer about the Swami seemed a timely coincidence, because Wayne had been planning to go to India to find a guru, he decided to go see Swami Bhaktivedanta on Frederick Street. So that's the beauty of an acharya. Like Srila Prabhupada came from Vrindavan, from a very, very traditional Vaishnava tradition. And he didn't know what to expect in America. But when he came, he saw a different culture. And the beauty and the power of an acharya is that he will bring the same millenary tradition, spiritual tradition. He will not change the essence, but he will adapt actually the way he will preach to address the culture, the society who will come to listen to him. So Prabhupada very quickly understood the American society, and American society, you know, America at that time was actually the country and the culture all the Western people were looking to. It was called, they were calling it the American dream. And we know it was a dream of plastic at the time, to have a shower, to have a cooker, you know, a dream of plastic. But Prabhupada understand, even he was looking, when he was walking in the street, he took some notes about the way American people were living. And he saw that, for example, that the boys and the girls were mixing very, very freely. So he made a revolution in the Vaishnava tradition, and we can see we are part in this revolution. He accepted ladies, you know, in the ashram, young ladies, beautiful ladies. Although at that time in India, you could only see very old Matajis, maybe in the ashram, you know, shaved. But he could see that's the way the culture is. So he accepted ladies in the ashram. He gave them equal rights and equal duties. Of course, ladies had to accept, you know, the proper behavior. To one of the first ladies, Chadurani, who came, she asked if she could join. He says, yes, but please don't wear these shorts. You know, you just put a long dress or sari later on. So Prabhupada was very, very compassionate. And he learned about also this drug culture. So in consulting the devotees, he made this flyer, "Stay high forever." Because with the drugs, as some of us unfortunately experienced it, there was a point you get what we call a high. You know, you get very happy, or you think you have some knowledge. But when the effect goes down, the spirit and the consciousness goes down. So it's true that Krishna consciousness, with Krishna consciousness, we could stay high forever. And many of us, we didn't have to go to a clinic or anything. Just by chanting the Maha Mantra, we got connected with the holy name, with the Ananda, the spiritual joy of the holy name of Krishna. And we didn't need any chemical substances anymore. So this flyer, "Stay High Forever," was distributed everywhere at the big rock concert the devotees organized. And Prabhupada was very compassionate, very hopeful of the power of the holy name. You know, so many thousands and thousands of young people intoxicating by eager to hear Srila Prabhupada speak, came to this rock concert. But seeing that their state of consciousness, Srila Prabhupada said, "Let us chant." And then, for the first time, he saw thousands and thousands of people, young people chanting the holy name, and he knew his mission was already successful.
San Francisco was the headquarters of
Yeah.
the hippies.
Yes, yeah,
All over the world.
yeah, yeah.
We're all going to San Francisco.
Yeah. There was even
Flowers in our hair.
in France, there was a song about going to the young people going to San Francisco.
Flowers in the hair.
Yeah.
Very famous Mandakini.
Yeah.
Some of the old people used to sing this song.
Yeah, everybody was singing, "Let's go to San Francisco." And
Well, the name of the song, we're all going to San Francisco with flowers in our hair.
yeah. And actually, they were right, because it was the best place to go, where Srila Prabhupada was in San Francisco, with flowers around.
Krishna's name.
And Krishna's name, yeah. So here, when I was surprised to find only a storefront. Actually, one of our godbrothers, Madhavendra Puri, told me when he was actually when he decided to join the devotees, he got the address rue d'Etienne-Dorf, Fontenay-aux-Roses. So when he went to Rue d'Etienne-Dorf, he was looking for he was an artist, so he was really looking for an Indian temple, you know, with Indian architecture. And he went up and down the street, but he couldn't find that special architecture. And then he found just a little suburb, house. That's what happened to Wayne. He was surprised to find only a storefront. He was startled by the picture of the Swami in the window. No smiling, beard yogi, but a shaven-headed Swami with a stern look. It was probably a picture that Gurudas Prabhu took. And it's true that the picture looks very, very stern. But when Prabhupada saw the picture, he said, "It's a very good picture. I'm actually in ecstasy." But it looked very stern. Okay. When went in, it was a typical Ashbury scene with hippies sitting around. But there were also a few people with big red beads strung, like garlands around their necks. These were actually the first japa. You know, the devotees were told no Tulsi beads came from India yet. So the devotees were told to buy some beads and strung them and make some knots. And we can see pictures of Mukunda with his first Japamala. And up front, he saw the Swami. Wayne was impressed as Prabhupada began chanting Hare Krishna. And he found the lecture firm and authoritative. The Swami stressed, we are not these bodies. And when he spoke of Krishna, he described Krishna so personally that it was like being introduced to Krishna. So all my brothers, they can testify for that. When we sat at the lotus feet of Prabhupada was giving a lecture, sometimes it was very simple sentences like we are not these bodies. But it was so convincing. At this time, we were completely convinced, yes, we are not these bodies, you know. And the way Srila Prabhupada was talking about Krishna, it was like he was opening a window on the spiritual world, a little window. And we could, with this vision, we could see Krishna, we could see the spiritual world, and we will become completely convinced that it was the reality. Isn't it? Yeah, in a few days, we will see Krishna. Actually, Tamal Krishna, at that time, who was Prabhu, he was a brahmachari. When I joined, he told me, and I believed him, in 3 years, we will all become pure devotees. 3 years. And then he had, because we were in a temple very, very crowded. And he said, and then everyone, we will have our own room. You know? And so then, yeah.
They will all have their own room. Kind of incentive, you know. If you're a devotee, you have your own room. Well, you have room, but I think like your own.
After a few meetings, Wayne got up the nerve to ask a question. Can one practice Hatha Yoga at the same time as Krishna consciousness? Prabhupada said, oh, why do you want to spend so much time with that body? Prabhupada replied. And Wayne felt Prabhupada's eyes look deep within him. You are not that body. He said it so strongly that Wayne, who was easily hurt, felt like shrinking into the floor. Prabhupada explained, this body is not as important as the soul. So we shouldn't spend so much time with the body, exaggerating its needs. Then he smiled at Wayne. Besides, all yoga culminates in Krishna consciousness. And Wayne felt that smile lift him completely out of his diminished and crushed condition. Yeah, so Prabhupada could be like that. At one time, you know, when he needed to rectify something, you will feel completely crushed. You will feel you didn't want to live anymore. But as soon as you understood and you took a humble attitude, or if you made mistake, as soon as you proposed a solution to rectify the mistake, then Srila Prabhupada started to smile and wouldn't talk about it anymore. So, wait. several weeks later, when asked about initiation, when the devotees told him he should go up and see the Swami, Wayne went home and rehearsed his lines first, because we had to either write to Srila Prabhupada or ask him directly for initiation. And I'll tell you something. No, first I will tell you later. So he wanted to rehearse how he was going to ask initiation to Srila Prabhupada, anticipating what Prabhupada would say when prepared his own responses and contrived the whole conversation. So he was rehearsing, he was thinking what Prabhupada is going to tell him, and he was thinking how I'm going to answer Srila Prabhupada, Then, nervously, he approached Prabhupada's door. But before he could even knock, the door opened. And there was Prabhupada looking at him, not sternly, as in his picture, but kindly, as if expecting him. Yes, Prabhupada said, come in. The incident completely shattered Wayne's planned approach. He concluded that Swamiji could read minds. So, trying to clear his mind of bad thoughts, he entered Prabhupada's apartment. One day, when devotee asked Srila Prabhupada, do you know everything? And Srila Prabhupada said, I don't know everything, but I just know what Krishna wants me to know. So Prabhupada sat in his rocking chair, and Wen, who usually sat on the floor, sat in the only other chair in the room. Wen immediately felt uncomfortable, as he realized that it would be more proper to sit at Prabhupada's feet. But feeling too weak-hearted to alter the situation, he kept his seat, nervously fingering his sports cap. Swamiji, he began, I would like to be your disciple. Prabhupada immediately agreed. He asked whether Wen could follow the 4 principles. And Wen, although not even sure what the 4 principles were, said he could. Prabhupada then asked him what principle was the most difficult for him to follow. Well, he said, I have difficulty with meat eating. A lie. He was a vegetarian, but he was too shy to say that his real problem was uncontrolled sexual desire. Prabhupada laughed. Oh, that's no problem. We'll give you prasad. You can be initiated next week. So you may remember Prabhupada, before coming to America, he actually wrote to one Vaishnava friend. He says, I'm ready, I'm going to America. And I'm going to open a youth hostel for the young men. At the time, he didn't know he was going to accept ladies. And he said, even if they eat meat, they cannot give up meat at first. Or if they cannot stop drinking alcohol, I will still teach them. He was very, very compassionate. And later on, teaching the young men in 26 Second Avenue, he told them, at one point that the spiritual master is to be accepted as good as God. So I remember Umapati told that we got really shocked because he told us that there is only God, God is God, and everybody is the servant of God. So we got shocked. We have to accept him as good as God. But then Ayagriva, Prabhu became Maharaj. Ayagriva told him, but we're already doing that anyway. So they got initiation, and I think next day they saw a little piece of white paper with Prabhupada's hands telling about the four regulative principles and chanting 16 rounds. And it was a big revolution because at that time, this hippie movement was about so-called freedom. Of course, it was not freedom, it was slavery to the senses, but freedom for everything. Freedom not to be told what to do, freedom for love, for sex, freedom from everything. And all the regulative principles were going against the mood of the time. But Prabhupada told them they were the four regulative principles of freedom because we actually bound it to the demands of the senses. So they became the four regulative principles of freedom. So when Wayne then asked if he would be able to go to India, because he felt the Swami would be pleased to hear that his new follower wanted to be in his country. But Prabhupada seemed displeased. India, why India? Wayne thought the real reason he had wanted to go to India was to find a guru. Well, he said, to learn Sanskrit? I will teach you Sanskrit, Prabhupada replied. So there was no need to go to India. And he should be initiated by a genuine guru next week, right here in San Francisco. So, in the beginning, devotees, they felt how to speak with Srila Prabhupada, to try to say the right thing. But often it was not, they didn't say the right thing. Like Shadurani, in her book, she's telling, she was also in the same mood as Wayne. And she, at that time, the youth was actually reading impersonalist book. So impersonalism was about voidism. And Prabhupada asked her if she was living very far from the temple. So she thought it would be very cool not to say she was living very far, although she was living very far. And then she says, oh, no, I'm not living far. She thought everything is one. And Prabhupada says, oh, yes, then you come every morning. Then she had about 2 hours trip on the tube, and it was very, very difficult. Another time, Prabhupada learned that she was going to art school. And he was asking what she was actually painting. So he sent a boy to ask what she was painting. So she said, oh, I'm used to paint men and women with some empty cupboard inside themselves, empty shelves, because we want the void. And then the boy was not very impressed, but then Prabhupada told her to start, he gave her pictures to paint Lord Chaitanya. So devotees, they didn't know what to tell Srila Prabhupada. So, okay. So now let's go to the initiation. So 1 week later, the initiation was supposed to take place. Some devotee helped when prepare for his initiation ceremony. Hayagriva lent when his dhoti. A piece of yellow cloth much too large for Wayne. Devotees set up a sacrificial arena in the storefront, a bed of earth, firewood, colored dyes, and flowers. During the ceremony, Wayne was nervous. When Srila Prabhupada chanted the mantra, Wayne could not hear them exactly. So he just mimicked as best as he could. And when Prabhupada began the fire sacrifice, Wayne felt a little frightened because the initiation seemed such a serious commitment. He watched Prabhupada gravely building the fire and saying the mantra. When Prabhupada initiated Wayne with his new name, Upendra, Wayne didn't hear it clearly and began to worry. Then the ceremony ended, and Prabhupada stood up and abruptly left the storefront. So it's a lot of things about the initiation names. But I like to just to tell one. You may have heard already about it. It's Ansadutta. Ansadutta, Prabhu, when he received this name. Ansadutta came from a German family. His father was probably affiliated to the Nazi regime in Germany. And after the war, he just went to America. So it was very, very hard for Ansadutta. His name was Hans, when he was a small boy, because all the children knew about the war, and they were just very harsh because he was German. So he was actually hating his name, his German name. His German name was Hans Carey. And he was so happy to be initiated, to get a new name. So I'm going to get a new name, finish this Hans Carey, it's a malediction. And then it's a lot of noise, when you get initiated. It's a lot of smoke. The windows are closed, and you're supposed to breathe the smoke for purification. So everybody was coughing and a loud kirtan. So he went in front of Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada asked him about the 4 rules and regulations. Then Srila Prabhupada gave the beats and said, your name is, and it was so much noise he couldn't hear very, very well. But what he heard, your name is Hans Carey. And he went, no, not again, again that awful name. And he was so disappointed and depressed. And after, when he got the sheet of paper, his name was Hansadutta Das Adi Kari. But he got the shock of his life. Again, that name that spoiled my life, And so now his name is Supendra. He's telling us, someone reminded me that I should go upstairs and give Swamiji an offering. So I decided to give him a baby blanket, baby blanket, and a beach towel. A beach towel.
Beach towel.
Yeah.
A beach towel.
Yeah.
A baby blanket.
It wasn't that I lacked money, he had money, but these things had some sentimental value to me. So I wanted to give them to Swamiji. I went upstairs to his room, and he was sitting at the foot of his mattress. I came in and I bowed down and presented him with the baby blanket and beach towel. He held them up in his fingers and looked at them, both in each hands. He said, "These things are useless." And he tossed them down on the floor. When he's saying, I was hurt and I had nothing to say. I just sat there. After a while, I excused myself and went back to my apartment. But the next day, I went to see Swamiji during his evening visiting time. And he had the beach towel and baby blanket out on the floor like rugs, so that his guests who came in to visit could have something to sit on. I felt satisfaction that he had found some use for my offering. So we remember, actually, Srila Prabhupada wanted to use any opportunity for people to start their devotional service. We remember at 26 Second Avenue when a bum came in, maybe drunk or not in a good state of mind. He came back with some toilet paper rolls, and the devotees wanted to kick him out. And he was trying to walk, not very straight to the toilet to put the paper towel. And Prabhupada stopped the devotees. He said, let him do so. It will plant the seed. He's going to begin his devotional service. Like that. So the compassion of Srila Prabhupada is infinite. Although we were known in India as mlechas and yavanas, meat eaters, very, very low birth, Prabhupada did everything to make us Vaishnav, to make us pure devotees. And he took a lot of blame on our behalf because we made so many mistakes. But himself, he took the blame. There are two Lila that are very moving. When the first devotees came with Srila Prabhupada to India, he called us his white elephants. White elephants because if an elephant comes into, how do you say, porcelain, how do you say in English, porcelain? Porcelain, in porcelain shop, of course the elephant, although he doesn't want to, he's going to break everything. So the China shop, and the first devotees, although very sincere, they were breaking the Vaishnava etiquette in a very gross way. For example, there was not much money. So they will go to Loi Bazaar and they would steal fruits, fruits and vegetables. And then the Vrajabasi would come to Srila Prabhupada. And they would say, but why are they doing that? They could ask, we would give them. And Prabhupada would have to take the blame on him. He would say, forgive them. They are not fully trained. They are like monkeys, And another time, to show the love he had for his disciples and for his children and grandchildren, all of us. One of the most exalted Vaishnav in Vrindavan, one of his god brother, I believe it was the old Puri Maharaj, never wanted to accept food from the white devotees, from the white Vaishnav, especially from ladies, you know. And then when he came and he asked Prabhupada, he asked him, what can I do for you? There was another part of the discussion, but Prabhupada told him, please accept prasadam from my devotee. And he took prasadam from the hand of Malati Devi, who was a lady. So it shows that even at the verge of leaving the body, Srila Prabhupada wanted his students to be recognized as pure Vaishnava by the most exalted Vaishnava of Vrindavan. So, okay, it's almost time, but it's so sweet. I'm just going to carry on because I think it's an important point. Prabhupada said that Upendra was not living up to his vows since he was still living with his girlfriend. Upendra felt guilty about breaking the principles forbidding illicit sex and intoxication, but he just couldn't follow them. He wanted to tell Swamiji, but couldn't bring himself to do it. Besides, he thought, even if he confessed, how could he stop? Upendra's girlfriend didn't like Krishna consciousness. She didn't want to meet Swamiji and didn't want to come to the temple. So Prabhupada decided that instead of marrying Upendra to her, he would save Upendra from her. Prabhupada decided to make Upendra a brahmachari. Although Srila Prabhupada had about 25 San Francisco disciples, hardly any were brahmacharis. Practically the only solid one was Jayananda, who was a little older than the rest. Jayananda worked all day driving a cab, chanting Hare Krishna even while driving. And when he was off work, he would be at the temple cooking or doing any service he could find, or sitting with Prabhupada in his apartment with the other devotees. He was known for his serious japa. Sitting cross-legged, eyes squeezed tightly shut, he would hold his strand of beads up in both hands and rock forward almost to the floor and back, chanting intensely, oblivious to the outside world. He was serious, and it was the only way one could remain a brahmachari. In New York, Prabhupada had about 12 brahmacharis, but a more permissive attitude among his followers in San Francisco made brahmachari life more difficult. Jayananda, maybe, I don't know if everybody knows about Jayananda Prabhu? Who doesn't know? Yeah. You can read, about him. He's one of our saints. He left this world. He's actually, we have a few saintly people, devotees who departed, contemporary saints. And he was the kind, very, very humble. For example, he was very involved in the Ratha Yatra festival. So he built the Ratha Yatra cart. And then one boy came to see the devotees, and he saw that man who was actually building the cart and taking care of the garbage. And he started to ask about this temple, this Hare Krishna temple. And he talked to that man who was taking the garbage out. And then he thought, even if the garbage man is talking so wonderfully, if I go inside of the temple, how extraordinary it's going to be. But that man was Jayananda Prabhu. Yeah, I mean, that's so much nectar. But I know it's 9 o'clock. So should I stop now?
I'm organizing the schedule, but the kirtan, I don't know who's leading kirtan. I'm sure they won't mind if you go a little longer. I don't know if
Yeah.
the guru will.
Okay. Or do you have any question about what we read? So we read. It was. It's quite extraordinary because soon it's going to be initiation coming up, and so it just we just read about initiation and the vows and everything. So I thought it was quite extraordinary. It was like Prabhupada talking.
Not quite like that now, though, is it? You get initiated like that now?
Actually, Maharaj is the best person to tell us because he's initiating, and you too. No, it's not quite like that. It's not quite like that. No, but it shows Prabhupada's mood of compassion, but it shows also that the disciple they need to have a very strong desire. And if we have a very strong desire to follow the rules and regulation, even if it's very difficult, we can pray to Lord Nityananda. He is the incarnation of bliss and mercy, and he will make all the obstacles go away.
Srila Prabhupada, one of those days there were no devotees in the West.
Yeah.
He was very, you could say, lenient in one sense, very open.
Yeah.
In San Francisco, isn't it, that there's in the I think it's in the Lilamrita, there's the story of the boy who came for 2 or 3 evenings, and then there was the initiation, and he said, "Can I be initiated?" And practically nobody knew who he was. And Prabhupada said, "Oh, do you know who you are?" The boy looked around and said, "I am a spirit soul." And he said, "Do you know who God is?" "Krishna." "Okay, you can be initiated."
Yeah, I can tell you. I came with Jyotirmai to England. We were looking for a spiritual master, but we were very contaminated by Mayavadi philosophy.
Impersonalism.
Yeah, impersonalist. And but I became just hearing Srila Prabhupada on the second day. Srila Prabhupada started to talk about initiation, and he said initiation is the beginning of spiritual life. And I became very attracted by Prabhupada's personality, and there was something very mystical. So they told us to go in Prabhupada's room to meet him. And then I was shy, like when to ask Prabhupada directly for initiation. So I asked Prabhupada, I would like to start spiritual life. And he had a big smile. And he said, "Oh, you're already doing spiritual life. You're cleaning Krishna's floor, cleaning the dishes." And I was surprised with my, impersonal understanding. This is spiritual life, just to clean Krishna's floor, and then then the initiation took place, and then a few days later, again we were told to go to Prabhupada's room, and Prabhupada came and he says, "What is your name?" And at that time, I looked at him and I was not initiated, so I told him, like with a tone of comment dire, reproche. Do you understand? With the tone, looking at him with the tone of reproach, I told him, but Prabhupada, I have no name. and he started to laugh. And then he said, you don't like the name your parents gave you? And he gave such a smile, and to me that smile meant, I will give you a name you will like. And he really did. Maybe I told you already before, he already did, because the person I loved the most in the temple, I loved everybody, but it was my dear Yamuna Devi. And when time came for initiation, I thought I would like to have the name like Yamuna, the name of a holy river like Yamuna. And there was also the brahmachari, a little older, who was protecting us like a big brother. His name was Trivikram. He was really dear to us. And then when I got my name, it was by letter, because Prabhupada was traveling the world. He said, my dear daughter, I'm very happy to accept you as my disciple. Please carry on. I'm very happy you're appreciating the bliss of Krishna consciousness, because we were going on Harinam all day, morning, afternoon, and night in London, back and forth, Tottenham Court Road, then afternoon to Trafalgar Square, evening to the drunk people in Soho. So there was so much bliss. And he said, I'm happy you're appreciating the bliss of Krishna consciousness. Prabhupada wants us to be happy devotees. And so we have to take care of each other, so we all become happy devotees. And he said, carry on learning from the older devotees there. And he said, your name is Mandakini Devidasi. It's the name of the river Ganges flowing in the heavenly planets. I thought, oh, I got the name of a holy river like Yamuna. And then it was also some connection when the Mandakini river is flowing in the heavenly planets. Then Lord Vamanadev becomes a very huge, and his name is called Trivikram. And then with this lotus toe, there is a little hole, and the Mandakini river can flow and become the Ganges, called by Lord Shiva. So he connected me. De quoi? T'as pas compris? Oh oui. Yeah. And then, en français, je peux dire. Et donc, il y a une manifestation du Seigneur, Vamanadev, qui assume une forme gigantesque, Trivikram, et il donne 3 pas, il prend les 3 pas que le roi lui a promis. Et à ce moment-là, la rivière Mandakini tombe de l'univers et vient sur la terre. Et voilà. Hare Krishna. So Prabhupada connected me with very dear devotees, and he gave me a name I love, like that, with the names, and initiation. Yeah. So So it says here. Let's see where we stopped. Oh yeah. So Prabhupada, he asked him to become a brahmachari. Srimad Bhagavatam tells of a young brahmana, Arjimil, who fell from spiritual life because he had seen a drunken man embracing a half-naked prostitute. In America, to see a half-naked prostitute in public was not uncommon. As soon as the brahmachari walked out on the street, he would confront so many allurements. But Prabhupada was convinced that brahmacharis could protect themselves even in America, if they regularly chanted Hare Krishna and sincerely tried to follow the rules and regulation, Krishna would protect them. Okay. Oh, shall I stop here? Okay, thank you so much, wonderful devotees. It was such an honor. I'm very grateful to have read with you Srila Prabhupada and Lilamrita, and always to your
so much,
service.
Mandakini,
Hare
for
Krishna.
coming to Mayapur,
Yeah.
spending a couple of days here,
Yeah.
and please come again.
Thank you.
Thank you for sharing your love for Srila Prabhupada.
Hare Bol Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Hare Krishna.
Mandakini ki jai. But we may have the
Yeah. I can see.
When other devotees, she's working on a book with Prabhupada in France, you know. And there's another book being worked on by
Oui.
Madhavendra Puri about the, pardon, comment on dit là,
Bhakti Sharma.
Bhakti Sharu Maharaj asked him to do this book about comment on dit la sauvegarde. I was thinking rescue. La sauvegarde de la Nouvelle Mayapur.
I mean, working on this book is our dear Gopaswami Prabhu. The French book is going to talk about New Mayapur and Jyotirmai also. And Nitai Gorasundar is going to also work on it, coordinating and also writing a chapter about ISKCON nowadays. No, but we already got interview, and we are going to ask him more. But New Mayapur is represented with Gopaswami Prabhu.
Also, there's another book.
No, just a little, bring back immediately some appreciation for Mandakini Mataji and Jananda Maharaj. You can see, they are expressing bliss. Bliss in speaking, smiling, and ecstasy, and Maharaj chanting and jumping like that. So around 70 years, people, they don't behave like that usually. So you have two examples. We hear about San Francisco. If you're going to anyway, you hear about that. Prabhupada's time, it was all bliss, ecstasy. Although those devotees were very, bad habits, on different levels. Drugs, sex, and eat meat. Like everything seems like Prabhupada was creating a world of beautiful, pure ecstasy at this time, and still is going on. So I was feeling that, hearing Mandakini Mataji, witnessing Jananda Maharaj, speaking in bliss, and Maharaj jumping in ecstasy and carrying everybody like that. This is Prabhupada's movement. Maybe so many imperfect things in our behavior, speaking, and whatever it is. But if we are linked with the reality of a devotee as Sri Prabhupada, then we can have this vision and experience of a world of, real peace, love, and service to others. Thank you, Mataji. Thank you, Maharaj. Hare Krishna.
He's always enlightening us also with his blissful smiles, stories about Krishna, various transcendental presentations. Thank you very much.
There's also another book. I've not seen it. Another book, it's in French, c'est en français, c'est sur Amazon, vous pouvez avoir e-books, Les ficelles du paradis, de, comment il s'appelle, Charanam Bouja, vous connaissez, Christophe Petit. Je n'ai pas encore vu le livre, mais bon, c'est sur le Yatra français. Donc il y a beaucoup de livres qui sortent. Hein. Le yatra français. Hein?
Comment s'appelle le fût?
Les ficelles du paradis, the strings of paradise. Yeah.
If anybody wants this book, Prabhupada Lilamrita in English, the very same version, there's 2 volumes. We have a good stock of these books now. If you want to, they're only at the moment in English, I'm afraid. Another one of the many books to be translated into French. This is available if you want a copy of 2 books in the set. This is volume 1. There's a volume 2 also. Where you can see myself, I guess, or Nitai Sachi Sutta or Jivananda or one of us, and you can obtain a set of these books. Hare Krishna.
This is complete in 2 books.
It's complete in 2 books, yeah. This is a new edition which is in 2 books. The old edition was 6 or 7. Pardon? You'd like a set? I'll give you one. Definitely before you go. You want to take it with you today? Yeah. Okay, I'll get one. We'll get one. No problem. It'll be a pleasure. Hare Krishna.
Merci Mandakini Mataji.
Prabhupada ki jai. Jai Ekadashi.